Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel. Today I have a books beside my bed video for you where I wrap up the last 7 days worth of reading. This is my reading week from the 7th until the 12th of January. I am filming this video a little bit earlier this week just because I have commitments on the weekend, which means I won't get a chance to film. So it's just a tad shorter of a week for this wrap up than normal, but I still have 6 things to share with you that I have read in the last week. So I'm very excited about that. All right, so kicking it off with Bound in Sin by Mae Pierce. This is an author who I've seen all over TikTok because of her, I think it was a Krampus Christmas novella, which I haven't read, but I still wanted to try her writing. And while this one wasn't necessarily for me, it was an interesting, short, steamy, very steamy monster novella. It is also why choose. So this one is about a succubus who is on the run from her demon ex-boyfriend who is obsessed with her and ends up going undercover in a religious cult. So beware of that if you're going into it, and ends up finding out that there is an incubus who doesn't know what he is inside this cult, who's having some kind of relationship with the priest, and then all of them get involved. So it is short and steamy, and if you are interested in that kind of monster romance, well worth checking out. I also read the Evelyn Maynard trilogy by Kaydence. Kaydence is an Australian author. I have read one other book by her. That was Revelry and Redemption last year, which I absolutely loved. That was a Why Choose story. This one is a Why Choose series. This one has more of a sci-fi paranormal feel to it. It is sort of set in our world. You have regular humans and you also have humans with kind of like superpower abilities called variants, and these variants can have all types of different powers. And then there is a sub branch of the variants called vitals, who are like the supercharging batteries for variants. Usually a variant will find their vital, they'll have a bond, and they're able to share energy so that, you know, they can charge up their superpowered friend, essentially. So at the beginning of the book, Evelyn Maynard is 18. She and her mother have been on the run their whole life. And in the very opening scene, they're on a plane moving to their next location, and something happens to the plane. Evelyn's mother is killed, and Evelyn is one of the only survivors of the flight. There is a team of people that save her, and she feels like she has a connection to one of them, but she's still very out of it while she's in hospital. And then we flash forward to a year later, and Evelyn receives an invitation to the Bradford Hills Institute, which is like an exclusive school that teaches variant studies and is very exclusive. Now, Evelyn believes herself to be human, always has, and when she gets there, she finds out that maybe that is not the case, and that she is a variant, specifically a vital, and she has the ability to share energy with other people. And then she starts finding the members of her bond. This was an interesting story, and I don't think there was anything especially unique done sort of in setting up the world, and I don't mean that as a bad thing. I think it was just very easy to sort of fall into. The emphasis really is on Evelyn and her relationship with the 4 guys that are in her bond. A few of them are related, they're cousins, and some of them are friends, and there is no sword crossing in the book, which is interesting because I thought there would be with at least 2 of the characters, but we kind of didn't get there, which was a bit disappointing. Evelyn has to build up this relationship with all 4 of her love interests. 2 of them are around her age, 2 of them are between 9 and 12 years older than her, and they all have a connection to Evelyn and her past. So it was an interesting story. There is this villain in it who is trying to make a grab for power, and he needs Evelyn to be able to do that because her vital ability is quite specific in the way that it works. And we find out later on that she's not the only vital with that ability and that they're incredibly rare. But yeah, it was just interesting. Like, as I've said, I'm constantly on the lookout for books with people with superpowers, so this sort of fit into that category. I also read Pansies by Alexis. This was a buddy read with Bree, and just as with all Alexis Hall's books, I loved it, but I'm also very conflicted about it because I had no idea what this book was about going into it. It is a childhood bullies to lovers situation, in that we have Alfie, who as a teen bullied Fen for being different. And in the present day, Alfie has realized that he is gay. He is struggling to find acceptance within his family. He's working this job which is making him very successful financially, but he's not feeling particularly fulfilled. And as we meet him, he's at the wedding of one of his high school friends. He gets sick of this party, he ends up leaving, and he ends up at a bar where he picks up this guy. And they have a one-night stand, and he can't get a read on this other guy because he's blowing hot and cold. And it's not until afterwards that he realizes, after he's told, that this is Fen, the kid that he bullied in high school. Fen has really complicated feelings towards Alfie, which this book is primarily single POV where the story and the narrative is told from Elfie's perspective, but there are chapters where we get Fenn's point of view as he's writing to his mother who has passed away. So this book does deal with grief. It also deals quite heavily with internalized toxic masculinity and internalized homophobia. There are homophobic slurs used in the book directed towards the main characters, and these two have a lot to overcome, particularly Elfie, who he wants Fenn, and he doesn't realize the impact his actions as a teen caused. And when he starts to realize that, he tries to make amends, but a lot of his internalized behaviors are hard for him to overcome, and that's what the length of the book is for him to realize that he needs to figure out his shit, basically. And I think that's what Alexis Hall does really well, is he does give us these characters who have things that they have to work on, they have to grow with, and at times it was hard to read. And it's not a fast-paced book by any means. There's not a huge amount of action. It is all character driven. And the whole time I just wanted this relationship to work, because you want to see someone overcome their past and to be able to redeem themselves and to make themselves better. I also just wanted to hug both of them, because both of these characters had things that had gone on in their past that had directly shaped who they were, and it made them both very, very cautious around each other. I loved buddy reading this with Bree. I wouldn't necessarily say it's my favorite in the Spires series, but it was definitely well worth reading. And the last book that I read this week was Between the Waves by Ellie Malouf. This was a book that I received in a book box, so I had no idea about the author or the book. This is a contemporary romance with some suspense elements, and it's set in Hawaii. There is an author's note at the beginning of this book that talks about how when she first wrote it, the author didn't realize the impact of tourism on Hawaii and its people, and so there is a note in there about the impact of tourism, which I thought was very interesting and an excellent note to put in here, because tourism can have quite a negative impact on local communities. But this is about Audrey, who moves to a small town on Maui, and we know that she is running from someone in her past on the mainland, and she wants to sort of fit in because she thinks that she can finally stop running. And when she expresses an interest in surfing to one of the locals, it's suggested that she goes down to the beach and down to the local surf shop and to have a chat to the guy there, who was a pro surfer who came back to the island, and he might be able to give her some pointers. And he's reluctant at first. He thinks she's a tourist, and he doesn't give lessons to tourists until she says, no, I've actually moved here. She tells him roughly where she's living and that she's planning on sticking around, and so he agrees to give her lessons, and that's how she meets Jake. And the two of them become friends. They're both attracted to one another, and then it obviously becomes more than that. But of course, Audrey's past comes back to haunt her as her ex-boyfriend ends up back on the island and starts causing a whole lot of trouble for a lot of the locals. This was just a really short, fun, summery holiday type read. As I said, I'd never heard of the author. It was a very fast-paced read and, you know, just perfect for my summer holiday break. All right, so those are the books that I have read this week. In the comments, I'd love to know if you have read any of these books or if you're planning on picking any of them up. Alternatively, feel free to share any of your favorite books from the last little while that you have been reading. Or if you want to let me know that you're here but you don't want to leave a comment, feel free to leave a wave or a water-based emoji down below. I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, everyone.